Welcome, everyone. This is the Ends Justify the Memes, the show where the lowest of the low, that is the most wretched of wretched in the plurable to end all the plurables, two white heterosexual Christian males from the American South talk about culture, philosophy, history, health, and what it means to be a man in the 21st century. I'll be your host, Bill, and this is my producer and co-host, Tank. And below today, we have Mr. Michael Witcoff, also known as Brother Augustine. So crack open a beer and lend us your ear because the ends always justify the memes. All right, man. That's the intro.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, man. So guys, today we have Brother Augustine, also Michael Witcoff, a author amongst other things, and a individual who was in the occult for a long period of time, a subject I happen to be a student of, or at least more so back in my 20s. I've read a lot of occultist books, was never a part of it, never believed in anyone what they believe, but I do believe in knowing your enemy. So from that, you then eventually went into Orthodox Christianity. And I kind of want to ask you how you got there, how you went from, well, the other thing is you're ethnically Jewish, so I don't know how you were raised, but how did you get from being an ethnic Jew to someone who went into the occult and then eventually into the Orthodox Church?
Well, that story might take up the whole hour, so I'll give you the short version. Yeah. Short version is grew up in a culturally Jewish community, which means nobody believes in God or takes it seriously, but they get together on holidays just for social networking, essentially, and to give the community some sense of being bound to each other. But it's not like you're sitting home reading the Bible, right? Reform Judaism is like the lowest, least observant possible level of Judaism. There's also conservative, and then above that, there's Orthodox. And then in Israel, I don't think they even have that. It's just Judaism. I don't know how all that works out there necessarily. And then in college, I got into partying and drugs and all that stuff. And then after college, this is the super, super short version. I moved to a bunch of different states, ended up in California, where I got into Freemasonry because I was working for Greenpeace at the time, canvassing for saving the whales and whatnot, even though at the time I was also into men's rights. So I had a bracelet that said save the males, that the feminists at Greenpeace did not particularly appreciate. And every day on the way to work and home and going home, I would pass the big Masonic lodge with the big square and compass on the wall facing the big freeway. And one day I was canvassing door to door, canvassed a guy who had the square and compass on his door frame. I asked him about it. He was very cryptic, but it sounded interesting to me, and it kind of wormed its way into my head. So one day after work, I stopped at the lodge, me and the girl I'd been canvassing with that day, asked him a bunch of questions. And for some reason, I got bitten by this bug of needing to know more, needing to understand, needing to be initiated in the ancient mysteries and all this stuff that sounded so cool to me at the time. After a couple of years of that, for an unrelated reason, I started reading the scriptures. Now, ironically, the first passages I ever heard from the New Testament were within Freemasonry, because when you're doing in your degrees what's called the perambulation, where you're blindfolded walking around the altar. Actually, I think at this point, you still have the blindfold at this point. You're walking around the altar while someone is speaking scripture, while the chaplain is reading a passage from scripture. Or not reading, just speaking it. He's memorized it. First introduction to the New Testament, ironically. But then when I really started studying the Bible and kind of repenting and thinking about my life more, I eventually realized I had to choose between Masonry and Christianity. Now, at this time, I had never heard of Orthodoxy. As far as I knew, there was just Catholics and Christians was how I would have conceived of it at the time, right? I wouldn't have considered.
I think that's most people. Yeah, I think most people don't understand that the Eastern Orthodox Church exists, that it's existed for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have no clue about it.
Well, in America, it's America's best kept secret, as we say, even though we're trying to stop that with all this YouTube content creation we're doing. So then I was Protestant. I was a Wesleyan for about a year and a half, I think, if memory serves. And I eventually needed something that was more traditional because I started to see the church doing things that the Bible pretty clearly said not to do. So I was still sola scriptura at this time. Like, I didn't understand that the letters of the Bible had been written to churches that were already there, that were already practicing, already worshiping. I was still coming from the Protestant mindset through which the church is built on the Bible, which is not really how it worked 2,000 years ago.
Right. And they don't understand the lineage of tradition. And I'm of similar mind. People who are in the Protestant faith are sola scriptorum, and they don't understand the history, the traditions, the culture of the day, right? And all those things are very important into what the faith is. You correct me if I'm wrong there, right?
No, you're right. And even just chronologically, so Pentecost happens on the year 33, right? The Holy Spirit comes down and thousands of people are baptized. That's the beginning of the church, right? Paul's first letter is written 20 years later. So you got 20 years of church before there's even one page of the New Testament. And then the last book, Revelation, is not written till the end of the first century. So really, I mean, you had almost 70 years of church before the last letter of the Bible was done being written. And then it's not even canonized officially for another 300 years or another 280-ish years. But at the time, I thought that the church was built on the Bible, that you take a Bible and start a church based on it, because that's all that I was exposed to. It's all that I knew. They never present you with this other perspective. It's just kind of assumed. It's a foundational presupposition of Protestantism, is that the church is built on the Bible. You don't question it, you don't even talk about it because it's so obvious in that worldview. So I was still sola scriptura, but I was seeing that the church was doing stuff different from what the Bible said. The Israeli flag outside, constant worship of the state of Israel, female pastors, things of this nature. So I eventually started looking for something more traditional, and someone asked me to look into Orthodoxy, which I'd never heard of before. And I Googled it, and there was an Orthodox church 4 minutes from my house, right up the road. Tiny little church where I was sometimes the only person at Vespers, which is our Saturday night service, besides the priest and the chanter. So 3 people in the room for the whole hour. And then I just got, the more I read, the more into it I became. I had to overcome a ton of objections that I had as a Protestant. The icons, couldn't stand the icons at first. This is idolatry, graven images, that kind of thing. The Mary stuff, which is very hard to get into, coming from where I was coming from. It took me
especially with an occult background, I would assume that would be even more difficult, right?
Well, it looked like some goddess worship type of stuff.
Yeah.
Because when you walk into an Orthodox church, behind the altar, the biggest picture is of Mary with little baby Jesus. The biggest picture in the building is Jesus, but it's above you in the dome. But when you first walk in, the biggest thing you see is Mary. So I was like horrified for a number of different reasons, right? Till I actually understood what was going on there. And then I did an interview with Jay Dyer in 2018 talking about leaving Masonry, not realizing what a small pond internet orthodoxy is. So all of a sudden I was known by all these people. I went from being completely anonymous to having people know who I was overnight, which is kind of strange. I'm still trying to get used to it, honestly. And then now I just, I go on YouTube and I do my ministry and I try to pull people out of the occult and bring them to Orthodoxy. And I think that people like my channel because I have this unique background of my ethnicity and my occult practice. You don't find a lot of people that have taken this exact same path. So for that reason, I feel like it's my duty and my responsibility to do this, It's not necessarily what I would choose to do. I wouldn't mind laying on a beach in Jamaica being fanned with palm fronds, but that's not what God has chosen for me. So here I am, and thank you for having me on.
We appreciate it so much, and especially I haven't had anybody on yet to talk about the occult. Tank had asked me about it before, and I sent him like 1,000,001 links. Of course, I'm a guy. I have all the Manly P. Hall books. I have Morals and Dogma. Sure. I have all that stuff sitting downstairs. So I'm a guy that's been into this for 15 some odd years as a student, right? As an observer. And I think it informs the reality of the world. And I tell people often on my channel, All Minus One, the non-live show, that is, that the lesson is something simple. There are 2 kingdoms, and this is what Christ preached. There's the kingdom of Satan and the kingdom of God. And Christ unifies you back into the family of God, the adoption of God in that kingdom. And everything else, guys, is just the kingdom of Satan. And it explains why the world is the way it is. And if you get into the occult, you'll see where they twist everything around to try and make God evil, and it's completely satanic from the get-go. And you can, of course, elaborate on that, Michael, because you were in it for a while, and you were a higher degree as well, were you not?
So technically, yes, I was 32nd degree in the Scottish Rite. But what people hear that and they get the wrong idea. Like it sounds like you're high up and you've been there, like all the secrets. So in reality, in the southern jurisdiction of the United States, you get your 32nd degree on your very first day in the Scottish Rite. This is not how it was historically done. It's not how it's done in Europe, where it might take 6 months to get each degree. In the United States, in the Southern jurisdiction, the day you join the Scottish Rite, it's an incredibly long and complicated day. You see 5 degrees, which are little plays, like little ritual plays. You see the 4th degree, Secret Master, the 14th degree, the name of which I'm forgetting, the 18th degree, the Knight of the Rose Cross, where they equate Christ with Muhammad and Moses. It's closer with Moses than with Muhammad, certainly.
Right.
Then you see the 30th degree, which is all about how evil Catholicism is. They don't say it outright, but it's very obvious that's what they're talking about. And then the 32nd degree is all about the royal doctrine and the holy secret, or something like that, where they teach you about equilibrium. And depending on where you see the 32nd degree, there might be an Om symbol in the background, or there might not. It's a little different from place to place. But by the end of the day, like, your brain is so toasted, you have no idea what you just experienced, because it's just so, each one of these is more than an hour long, mind you. Full of all this different pagan philosophy and different rituals and items and weird stuff. So then you got to go back and watch other people go through the degrees just to understand what you had seen the first time, or you become an officer and you're actually, which is just an actor in the degrees, or a coordinator who coordinates the actors, or you prompt them when they forget a line. But 32nd degree doesn't mean anything, because people can know nothing and still be a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason. Now, the way Albert Pike designed it, as you know if you've read Morals and Dogma, was he designed a higher. So many plebes were joining the degrees, he wanted to keep something secret for the smarter people. But that's been undone, and now everyone just sees everything. So technically I was a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, but again, you won't find anyone in the Scottish Rite in the Southern jurisdiction of the United States who is in the Scottish Rite and not a 32nd degree Mason, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And basically what you learned through that, to just summarize it, is Kabbalah Gnosticism, correct? I mean, that's essentially what Masonry is. You're right. It's there's more to it, but that's, if you want to break it down.
Gnosticism is the core of it. And they mentioned Kabbalah in the 4th degree. They actually put a big, projector image on the wall of the Tree of Life glyph in the Kabbalah with the 3 pillars, like the left and right, and you're supposed to be the middle pillar to attain equilibrium or whatever. But most guys in Masonry have no idea what's happening. They're not listening when the degree talks about Kabbalah, or they don't think anything of it, or they're not really there to learn anyway. They're there for business connections or political connections or whatever. Like, we had a guy get in trouble because he used our lodge email list to try and promote his political career without asking the master of the lodge if he could. So people join for all kinds of different reasons. But if you are an occult-minded person like I was, I've been into New Age spirituality and this kind of thing, then there's stuff that you go to that's deeper. Like, Scottish Rite has what's called the Master Craftsman program, where you start to study this stuff a little more deeply. Or there's little occult groups within Masonry that are private that will pull you in if they think that you'd be interested in it. But what they show to, like, the average Mason is just a very, very surface level introduction to Gnosticism. Like, if you see that and you're not interested in more, then you're never going to see more. But if you are interested in more, then you are going to see more. So it's kind of like you go to the level that your brain is designed or is receptive to, let's say. So it's very compartmentalized.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned Kabbalah. I haven't watched a ton of your stuff. Of course, I just sort of discovered you like 2 weeks ago as well. And my time is limited. But yeah, I brought up Kabbalah only because it's used very much so, I believe, or very close to the Gnostic beliefs that were in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century. They're very kind of intertwined of there's this higher God you can't quite connect with, so you have to go through all these steps to get there. And of course, the Gnostics believe in this idea of the demiurge, and the Garden of Eden was, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jehovah created the Garden of Eden to imprison men, and Lucifer set him free. And Lucifer, by the way, folks, isn't even a name for the evil one. It is a transliteration of a word that just means the light bearer. And originally that passage about Lucifer was referring to the king of Tyre or Babylon. I can't recall. I forget. It's been a while. But yeah, it wasn't used the way it is now dispensationally as the devil. That whole passage in Isaiah is something else. But that's an academic argument that I'm not going to go down into. In any case, but yeah, the whole idea is that God put man into the Garden of Eden, and he kept man from seeing the truth and from having knowledge. And the
Yeah.
good God, Lucifer, freed man by giving him all knowledge and freeing him and allowing him to live forever, essentially, through the attainment of knowledge is, you know, more or less what I would say. But you are the expert. I'm just a guy who's read some stuff. So you tell me.
Well, I'm just a guy who's read some stuff too. But from what I understand, from what I experienced in that world, so the root of Gnosticism is dualism, right? Yes. Spirit good, material bad, which is interesting because certain types of Protestants are very close to that when they say I'm spiritual but not religious. What they're saying is it's all about my internal spirit, but I'm not going to do things with my body like make the sign of the cross or venerate an icon. Like it kind of blurs the line with Gnosticism a little bit in that sense.
My two of the biggest things, aside from the papacy, I always criticize the papacy because I don't think that's biblical, but
I agree with you.
Yeah. But the two biggest things for me is once saved, always saved. The idea that you basically have to say a little prayer and there's nothing else to it.
Yep.
Right. That's Gnosticism, more or less, in the end, because you believe if you have the proper belief, you will be spiritually right with God. And that's not what God says at all.
Right.
And then the other one is the Calvinists who I don't know. I believe that a lot of their beliefs are essentially Gnostic in general. If you go through Tulip and all that, and you look at how they look at God as the creator and author of evil, and basically Christ sacrificed himself to his Father, which is weird, to satisfy his Father's bloodlust. Then that's not what happened at all, right?
It turns the Father against the Son and creates all kinds. It creates a schism in the Trinity,
right?
So I would say Kabbalah is it's a combination of Jewish Gnosticism with Neoplatonism, or with Jewish eschatology with Neoplatonism, where the Neoplatonic view of like the one ultimate God that emanates itself out into matter through a series of stages. Kabbalah has that. And Kabbalah is, according to the Kabbalists, which not all Jews are, by the way, there's a group called the Torah True Jews that reject Kabbalah and reject Talmud. But those who are
came
not
out of Babylon, that all came from Babylon, the Babylonian years and the captivity, from my understanding, right? I mean,
that's my understanding as well, that they probably learned it while they were captured there, because they did have a very similar emanationist philosophy in Babylon. Kabbalah is, to the Jews who study it, it's the fourth layer of Torah interpretation, Torah being what Christians call the Old Testament, where they have to look for secret codes in the letters, and they apply astrology and gematria and numerology and all this stuff to try and figure out this kind of secret knowledge. That's what Gnosticism is about, right? Spirit good, matter bad, and the way to get from matter to spirit is through the attainment of secret knowledge. Now, different Gnostic groups have different approach to this. Like for some of them, it doesn't matter what you do with your body if you have the knowledge. So you can sin to your heart's content and still be saved. The Carpocratians were the big promoters of this back in the day. Others believe that since the body is bad because it's material and all material is bad, you can abuse it. Perfect example.
Yeah, if you guys want to read anything about this, read Irenaeus.
And this is a timely conversation we're having because I just got challenged to a debate. Actually, he challenged me 11 months ago, but I just saw it this week. A Gnostic on YouTube called Marty Leeds 33, who's just reiterating all the old heresies, and he's going to argue that the Eastern Orthodox Church has, just like you're saying, it's like the bad God that has kept the knowledge from people, and the good God, but he's LARPing as a Christian too. So he's talking about the Holy Savior, Jesus Christ, the holy book of the Bible. Like he's saying this stuff just to deceive people. I don't know if he really understands that, because occultists are just as deceived as the people they're deceiving, right? Their bodies are being used as a puppet by some evil spirit, and they're deceived as well. But that's the argument he's going to make, is that the Orthodox Church and our dogmas are keeping the secret knowledge away that you need to be saved. I assume regardless of what you do with your body. I'm going to have to talk with him about virtue and whatnot. But Kabbalah believes that their Messiah is going to come back, that Metatron, the angel Metatron, which is obviously Satan if you read what they're talking about, is going to come back once all the divine sparks are collected in the right combinations in the right places. And it's this whole complicated, goofy thing that means that Christ was not the Savior, but because this Satan Metatron creature is going to be the real Messiah. It's all just like you were saying. It just takes holy things and twists them around and turns them into something else.
This is what John was talking about in both 1st and 2nd John, when he's talking about the Antichrist and people who do not claim that Christ came into the body.
Exactly.
He's talking about Gnostics. When you look at the Nicolaitans or Nicolaitans, however you pronounce it, in Revelations, they're talking about Gnostics. The Gnostics was one of the first big heresies the church faced. The other one, of course, everyone knows, were the Judaizers. And now modern faith, modern religion has taken that out and basically said, oh, that's legalism. No, Paul was talking about people who were talking about living the Jewish law, not the law under Christ. There's still the law under Christ. Remember, in the Sermon on the Mount, when Christ said, many will come to me and say, Lord, didn't I prophesy in your name and do this and that? And he said, I never knew you, you worker of iniquity. Well, the word in Greek there is antinomian, which means lawlessness, you worker of lawlessness. There are rules, folks. I'm sorry to tell you, there are rules you have to follow in order
Paul
to be the graces of God.
Paul lists off a whole list of behaviors that will keep you out of the kingdom of heaven. That some people, they don't like that. They prefer to ignore that, as if like the once saved always saved. That's the problem. Like probably the biggest example I can think of is Steven Anderson. Have you seen his YouTube?
As soon as you said that, man.
Once you're saved, you can fornicate, murder, and adulterate to your heart's content because you're saved, so it's fine.
And then he goes on and preaches. He's like, "Don't do these things. So you can't do these things. You heathenous people." And I'm like,
he's a very confused.
You're sending mixed signals.
Like he's a very confused guy. It's cool that he jumps on the table when he yells. That's a cool move. But if you're going to do that, at least yell something that's helpful. That's useful.
I watched him years ago. I don't even pay attention to that guy anymore. But years ago, I watched him talk about how men are supposed to wear pants because it is in the King James Bible that they wear trousers. Of course, the King James being written in Elizabethan times, not exactly a one-for-one correlation there. No. In fact, the barbarians back in the day, as far as the Roman Empire was concerned, they were the ones that wore pants and they were made fun of. Most people just wore tunics. So, just stupid stuff like that. It's like there's no cultural context. There is no historical context there to anything that he's saying.
My biggest problem with his outfit is actually how poorly his blazer fits, to be completely honest. Like, okay, if you're going to say you have to wear these clothes, then pay the $20, get the sleeves done properly, or just like don't buy something off the rack that doesn't fit you and then talk about the importance of dressing properly. But maybe that's nitpicking. I don't know.
Right. Real quick, I just want to address the audience. I appreciate you guys being here. Usually our chat's a little bit more lively. But we do usually run memes in the beginning of the show, but Michael only had an hour for us. So I just figured we'll do it afterwards. It's not a long list tonight. But guys, please like, share, subscribe, all that. If you are not regulars to us, consider it. Consider checking out our show, our channel, and whatever's in the past. But moving on, one of the things you were talking about the body and the spirit that I always find just a really interesting point is many modern Christians do, at least on the Protestant side, do believe in the separation of body and spirit, and it's completely antithetical to the origins of our creation. And it also our likeness in God, and that we are mind, body, and spirit, or I would say, our psyche, like our personality, who we are, depth. Our spirit is like our attitude, and of course we have the physical flesh. And I always bring the point to Socrates killing himself with the hemlock and going off and drifting off into sleep, and him thinking that finally I'll be free because my soul will be free from my body. But that's not how it works. That's why there is a resurrection, and that's why Christ came in the flesh. That's why God became a man. So it all ties into that. So I don't know. You have any comments on that? Just
Sure. I'm actually reading a book called that Jay Dyer recommended in his chat with Austin on the Gospel Simplicity channel. I don't know if you saw that. A really excellent chat about theosis, the Orthodox doctrine.
What was the name of it again?
The channel's called Gospel Simplicity.
Okay, I'll look it up.
It's a theological student, Austin, who does interviews with priests of different denominations and all kinds of different people. So Jay recommended this book, The Deification of Man, by Georgios Mansourides, The Deification of Man, that goes through the importance of understanding Christ and the connection between his divine nature and his human nature, and how that connection allows us to be deified. It allows us to undergo theosis. So the fact that Christ had a body and a human nature is incredibly important. And I think part of the reason why people deny that Christ had a body is because they don't want to have to discipline their body, right? They prefer to believe it's all spiritual so that they don't have to fast. They don't have to stop sinning, right? That's probably the number one thing that stops people from being Christian. They don't want to stop fornicating, right? It feels good. It's fun. They don't want to stop. It's a hard thing to stop doing. But you have to stop doing it, because if you're trying to live in conformity with with Christ and restore the image and likeness of God within your own being, you have to try to imitate him as best as you can, him and the apostles. So you're either celibate or you're having sex within marriage. And if you're fornicating outside of marriage, you're living outside of the teachings and you're harming your own soul. A lot of people don't want to hear that. So they pick and choose, or they come up with new doctrines, like in that book, Against Heresies, that you were holding up.
Yeah.
St. Irenaeus specifically says that the cause of Gnostic heresy is a desire for money, sex, or power. There's always some sort of earthly desire behind the theory. So people come up with these complicated theologies or pseudo-theologies to justify their base desires, is basically the root of these heresies.
Well, do you know who the first anti-pope was?
I don't. I haven't studied the list of popes.
First anti-pope was Hippolytus, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering this correctly.
Oh, the guy who wrote the Apostolic Tradition?
Yes. And the reason why he was the first anti-pope is because the pope that was elected at the moment, and of course the pope isn't the same thing the way we think of it today as it was then. He was just the bishop of Rome. And because they were in Rome, and Rome was the seat of political power, basically the church took that position, unfortunately, which the church should be separated from, by the way, folks. In any case, I can't remember the pope's name at the time that was elected, but he basically was allowing the Christians, the new converts, to come in and have sex with their slaves, because he's like, well, it's basically your wife. It's just a concubine. It's your wife. And so there was an anti-pope, and this was like 2nd century, and Hippolytus was that. And he wrote an entire treatise against this pope.
I bet he did.
Yeah. This goes way back, guys.
The scriptures,
from the beginning.
Paul warns about the wolves that are going to come in and attain important positions within the flock so they can mislead bigger groups of people. And that's what he was talking about. He was talking about the heretics and the deceivers, people like Arius and Nestorius, this pope that was, sleeping with his slaves, or encouraging people to do that. And you're right. The church should be separate from the temporal power, but work together with it. That's the traditional Orthodox view, is called symphonia, where the patriarch works with the emperor. So they can kind of feed each other and help each other. Whereas in Roman Catholicism, which are two words that don't really apply to that group, but I'm going to use it anyway, as Father Peter here just corrected me on this, actually. They wanted to become the temporal power. So Gregory VII, during the Gregorian reforms, gave himself the power to depose emperors. So he was not only wanted the temporal power, he's putting himself above the temporal power. So you don't want to mix the kingdoms like that, I don't think. I think it's a dangerous game. No,
and I would even say, and you may disagree, but I would even say the working together between the church and the state goes back to Constantine and the Council of Nicaea era.
Sure,
and
I agree.
Before that, it really was not in existence. And in fact, many of the early church, if you read the early church writings, I can't give you an author off the top of my head because I've just read so much over the years, but many of them were kind of like, don't get involved in the government, don't be in the government. Many of them said, don't take up political positions because you might have to murder a man, or not directly, but give the execution order.
Yeah. So can I address that for a second?
Go ahead, man.
So I've looked through all this stuff, and there are definitely early Christian writers who said, like, wash your hands of politics, don't get involved with any of this stuff. However, those people tended to not be saints. I've noticed those people tended to be like Tertullian and Origen, who were actually anathematized for various heresies.
Oh, I didn't realize Tertullian was. I knew Origen was, but
yeah. So Origen and Tertullian were contemporary, one in the East, one in the West. Ironically, taught many saints and church fathers, but themselves went off into different heresies. Now, in regards to your comment about how you shouldn't get involved because you might have to murder someone, this is a reason why at the time of Constantine, many people did not get baptized until the very end of their lives, because in our sacramentology, if you want to call it that, holy baptism not only is your entrance into the church, you can't take communion before you've been baptized, because that is what washes away everything, all of the stains you've accumulated before your baptism. That is the cleansing of the image of God that you've been staining your whole life through various kinds of sins. So specifically people in positions like Constantine, he didn't get baptized till the very end, because the danger in their mind was, okay, well, let's say I get baptized when I'm 30, and then I have to do all these war campaigns, right? And I'm murdering tens of thousands of people, of enemy soldiers. You got to go confess for every single one of them and stuff like that. And there is a case where when emperors use their power to violence unwholesomely, like not in a war, but like vengefully or personally, they would be excommunicated by the church until they repented. This happened with Theodosius in 381. But the reason you don't see the political connections before then is pretty simple, because Christianity was illegal. So you couldn't have Christian politicians because they would just be killed.
Right.
Constantine made it legal. He believed in tolerance of all religious practices. He didn't make the empire Christian. That happened with Theodosius later.
Yes.
But once it was legal, all of a sudden you get people running for office and becoming this and that are actually Christian.
Yeah, and he was a big, generally supporter of the church. He did another thing I'm not a big fan of, which was put the leadership of the church on stipends and gave them church buildings. I think that's the responsibility of the laity, but that's a whole nother thing we could talk about. But
that's related to Christianity being illegal, because you can't build giant buildings when gathering in them would just mean everyone gets killed, right? So he did do a lot of church building. He did a ton. And one of the reasons he moved the capital from Rome to Constantinople, or Byzantium at the time, was because the pagans had taken all the good building sites in Rome. So he wanted to go to this mostly Christian town of Byzantium.
Not the Vatican, man. Not the Vatican. The Vatican is on a quite a crazy pagan site, if you know the history of that. But, that's a whole nother issue, I guess.
Yeah. There's Constantine's one of the most controversial figures probably in the history of the planet. There's all kinds of opinions and books supporting their different opinions, but I find him a fascinating guy. I was much more against him than I am now. Now politically, I would consider myself a Constantinian at this point.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So, yeah, that's the closest I think that we can get to restoring some sense of order in the world. Not that it's ever going to happen, but in my idealized fantasy world of politics, some emperor comes in and makes it a Christian.
Yeah, I mean,
makes the empire Christian again.
Right. We all have that fantastical world utopia that will never happen. Yeah. I'm fond of saying that people need to realize, at least people in the faith, that leftism is actually the default of humanity. So the non-default would be following Christ, and of course, there's a lot of people in the faith supposedly who are leftist as well. And
sadly,
you're not in the faith, folks. You're just not. You can't be.
No, it's very unfortunate that when they try to turn it into social justice, because then they're mixing the temporal with the kingdom the same way that the papacy did.
Right.
Where they're just trying to make it all about material well-being. Now, of course, you should help people where you can and be charitable, but you can't say like Jesus came here to make everyone equal in a material sense. That's obviously nonsense, and it's never going to happen anyway, because people aren't equal, and if you force it, then they're not free anymore.
That's right. That's right. Tank, you got anything, man? Because you get quiet, man. We've been talking for like 25 minutes. So.
You guys are doing so good. I don't know.
Tank's following the Orthodox hesychast tradition of silence, of holy silence.
Yeah. Let everyone else talk, and then I'll come in. No, I mean, I'm really glad you came on, because when we first started this podcast, I was like, I'm Orthodox Christian. I was like, but I'm not going to talk about it because I'm not really good at talking about it. So it's nice to have someone that can like explain a lot of these more complex topics, because to a lot of the Protestants, even myself, I grew up Protestant, trying to talk to people about Christianity outside of a Protestant frame of reference is even hard for me to do now. Well, I had a guy that was he was like a Baptist or something back when I was in college, and he was trying to start like a Christian group or whatever. I'm like, that's good. It's nice to have in college. And he was talking to me about, he's like, what do you, we're talking about salvation. Of course, I grew up Southern Baptist myself. So I was like, well, I know what you're going to say. So I'm going to tell you what I believe. I started talking about the sacraments and stuff. And he just kind of like, cocked his eyebrow. I mean, like, I was speaking a different language. I might as well have been speaking Greek when you start talking about these different sacraments and things. So yeah, like I said, it's nice to have you on. But one thing you just said that was interesting about how controversial a figure Constantine is. Every church I've been, and I've only been to Greek Orthodox churches, but every church that I've been to has always there's usually like a window or something that has Constantine and Helena, the icon of the window. But I did do like a book report or something when I was in college about Constantine. It was written by a Greek guy, and he was basically giving Constantine the runaround. He's like, well, I mean, technically he's a saint, but not really. So I don't know, like. Can you go into a little bit more detail about why you think Constantine is so controversial?
Sure. So there's a few controversies around Constantine. The first one is whether he ever converted to Christianity in the first place, which a lot of the detractors will say no.
Yeah.
I think that the evidence leans toward his conversion took time because at first I think he didn't really differentiate the God of the Christians from his father's God of Sola Invictus. Because even after the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, which was where Constantine had his vision of the cross and changed the Roman labarum of the soldiers to have the Cairo on it, the symbol of Christianity, even after that, he described the God that he had worshipped as the unconquerable Son. So this was the God of his father. But his father had always been a monotheist. He had been very tolerant of Christians. He did not put into place the anti-Christian laws that the other three Roman emperors had been doing at that time under Diocletian, the main emperor. So I think that Constantine had his vision of Christ, or of the cross in the sky. He heard Christ's voice, but he didn't really understand it at first because he had never spent time around Christians. Now, he did have some bishops and Christians in his army, which he went and talked to about this vision, according to Eusebius, who wrote his there's some fly in my room. I don't know how it got here. He talked to Eusebius about his vision. He wrote his biography later on. But even then, it took a while for Constantine's pagan imagery to disappear from the coins he was minting, from the statues he was building. But I think over the course of his life, you do see him moving away from paganism more towards a better understanding of what Christianity was. As you would expect any brand new convert to take, it takes a while to understand, right? Especially in the world that he grew up in. But his court philosopher, Lactantius, wrote that Constantine used to preach about Christ so much in the calls of power that it actually irritated the people around him. So I think he was trying his best to be a good Christian, and it just took a while to get it. Like eventually you see the phasing out of pagan imagery on the coins and in the statues and all that stuff. And even the statues he built, he would be facing away from the pagan gods, like making a statement of we're turning away from this towards something new. Whereas the other emperors would build a statue of them like embracing or facing the pagan gods to show that they were under their patronage or under their protection or something of that nature. He obviously built a ton of churches. His mother, Helena, was the one that found the true cross in Jerusalem. So there are definitely saints in the Orthodox Church. Ironically, I don't think Constantine is a saint in the quote Roman Catholic quote Church in the West, where he was the emperor of the West before he was the emperor of the unified empire. But he's definitely a saint for us. He legalized Christianity and made an enormous impact on the world. He also killed his wife and child, so that's a bit controversial.
Yeah.
And we're not sure exactly why he did that, but he got baptized at the end, so all of his sins would have been wiped out at that point.
So, another figure that's kind of controversial, depending on who you ask, right? Someone who's highly respected in the West, but for me, toward the end of his life, I think went in the wrong direction, is Augustine. And you use your YouTube handle as Brother Augustine. And I know you respect him because I've heard you talk about him. I watched your video, at least part one, on your thoughts on Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Pageau.
Oh, the second one, I was much nicer. You should watch the second one.
Oh, well, look, I'm a fan of Peterson, but I also get everything that you said disparaging about Peterson. I think, one of the memes I have, because there's the Red Skull thing that just happened the other day, was about that. I don't know if you heard about that. So, okay. So Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's an activist, a weird, leftist activist, writes comic books, and he decided to write Jordan Peterson as Captain America's arch nemesis, Red Skull, essentially. Red Skull is bringing about the masculinity of men back to our society, and he's an evil guy for doing so. And he's got 10 rules, and at the top it says chaos and order. So it's literally supposed to be Jordan Peterson's 12 rules and chaos and order. And someone, yeah, but it's also like absurd, the whole premise. I mean, Jordan Peterson might be a little bit confused. He might not be in the faith, but he's not a Nazi. I know that much. In fact,
he's not a Nazi.
That's what he preaches against, is collectivism, collective mentality, getting lost in the cult, getting lost in the mob. So it's pretty retarded, in my opinion, to make that comparison. In fact, I say let's embrace it. Let's all get part of Hydra now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not really a comic book guy, but I'm pretty sure Red Skull was actually a Nazi, right? Like he had the swastika. That kind of thing.
He was literally the antithesis to Captain America. So he was the German version of Captain America. Yes.
Ironically, America supported Hitler at the beginning of the war, but we could just pretend that didn't happen.
Well, so did the Catholic Church, but
true.
Well, some of the Catholic Church. I don't think the
Pope So the position of the Catholic Church is that they try to work with the leader of the country. So since Hitler was validly elected, they didn't really have much of a choice on that. They can't tell the whole country of German Catholics to fight against their elected leader. You know what I mean? I don't fault them for that, because the Pope was in kind of a tough situation with that. I mean, they worked with Mussolini and stuff of that nature, with Napoleon. When there's a leader,
they always do. Look, we had Trump go and talk to Kim over in North Korea, and that was a big deal. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? You got to look, we're either enemies or we're allies or we're somewhere in between. And I'd rather be somewhere in between than flat out enemies and the horrors that come with that, right?
Well,
it's complicated, the whole concordant issue.
The United States teamed up with the Soviet Union, and now we have Marxist professors at every one of our universities. So
we also have China because of our opening up of the Chinese economy. So I think that's all like New World Order, UN conspiracy stuff based in that occultist Gnosticism, because the world belongs to Satan. I mean, if I had to sum everything up, that's what I would say about it. So,
well, I'd say the world belongs to God, but he's allowing Satan to play around for a while.
Yes, there you go. Well, I would say if we go all the way back to the fall, right? Adam sold his birthright to Satan instead of, taking on his majesty directly from God. He decided to worship someone else who would lead him, and right, and it cursed the entire earth because of it. And so we're still suffering those consequences until the Lord returns.
Yeah, and in any case, they really ruined it for everybody. Those two.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up. Speaking of which, what is your thoughts on the original sin issue? Because I know it's different for different people. I believe, much as the early church did, that yes, the earth was cursed because of Adam's sin, but I don't believe, like the Calvinist, who got this actually from Augustine and some of his later writings, that sin passed on to every human being potentially. I think we're in a fallen state and not connected to God, and it took Christ to reunite us, right? He had to bond us out of our slavery to sin and death and Satan. So St. Augustine is a saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and he also is acknowledged to have had many errors that were never accepted by the greater church, because we don't think of our saints as infallible. We don't think they have to be perfect on theology. We have many saints who would say things that other saints disagreed with. So what the Orthodox Church will typically say is that we believe in, quote, ancestral sin and not, quote, original sin. But I don't believe that this is a meaningful distinction. Now, the Augustinian sense of original sin is inherited guilt. We don't believe in inherited guilt. And I don't believe that's what original sin actually means. I think that was his Manichaean past, Stoic past.
Yes. He never really let go of his
seeped in at his old age,
Yeah, he never completely let go of his dualism. Like, he was against sex even in marriage, because sex was the mechanism by which that guilt was passed on to the next generation, right? Through the sperm, through the creation of a new body that was passed on. This is part of why the Roman Catholic Church invented the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, was to get around this doctrine of Augustine's that the East simply never accepted. The Immaculate Conception is also completely unnecessary and kind of goofy when you get into it. So what we would say is that human beings have inherited the consequences of Adam and Eve's sin, but not the guilt of it. So we have inherited concupiscence, or the temptation towards sin, or the general state of evil that we are born in, where we're selfish and we're dishonest and we're manipulative. We're all born with that, but we're not guilty of Adam and Eve's sin. So a lot of Protestant groups, like you're saying, Calvinists, they took the worst of Augustine's errors while completely ignoring all the incredible good stuff he wrote.
Yeah.
And then they
one of my favorite errors of his is when Christ said, go out and compel those in the streets to come in to the wedding service, because those who weren't there, who weren't prepared, and go out and compel them in the streets. And Augustine took that from the Latin, because he didn't read Greek. He took that and decided that meant that you could compel people by force into Christianity. And I don't agree with that at all.
No, that's not correct. Now, interestingly enough, Calvinists the Calvinists' perception of double predestination, they took from Augustine, but they made it worse. Now, in Augustine's worldview, there was the difference between the elect and the non-elect, which the greater church never accepted. But in Augustine's view, you never knew which side you were on. Now that's closer to orthodoxy because we never judge our own salvation or that of anyone else. You know, Paul says, I judge not myself in the scriptures. He's saying, I don't have enough insight into my own heart to know whether I'm really saved or not. I'm just going to do my best and try not to screw up. That's
run that race. Run
exactly.
that race, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, Calvin took that and said, not only is there a difference between the elect and the elect, but the elect absolutely know that they're elect. If you know, you know, which is, of course, just a source of massive pride and delusion. Like if you think at this type, once saved, always say, well, I know I'm elect, so I've been saved because God told me, so now I can do whatever I want and it's no big deal. So all kinds of errors sprang from the Reformation, and it's unfortunate that they took some of the worst errors of Augustine and ran with it instead of looking at what the greater church has always taught and gone with that instead. You know, even Martin Luther said that the truth was with the Greeks. You know, he should have just become Orthodox instead of
I was going to bring that up. Does anyone know why Martin Luther didn't just become Orthodox? It
because
seems like
he was an Augustinian monk. That's why, because he studied and trained it for years, and that was he believed in the Catholic system more or less. He just didn't believe what they were doing at the time.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to separate from the Catholic Church. I mean, his original 95 Theses, he was just trying to address errors. He wasn't trying to start a Reformation.
Right.
The problem was that the error that he wrote to his archbishop about was something that the archbishop, the thing with the indulgences, that the archbishop knew about and totally supported. So when Martin Luther wrote this letter, hey, do you know this guy's doing this thing? The archbishop was a supporter of it at the time, which he didn't realize. That kind of started the fight. Then it just escalated from there with the headbutting until he eventually broke off. But yeah, he should have just been Orthodox. That would have saved the West a lot of trouble.
But at the same time, his views weren't Orthodox because Luther really admired Paul above Christ and put the book of Romans before any other book in the Bible, and then took things way out of context. And he's the one who came up with the idea of sola scriptura. So there's all kinds of issues with Luther, not to mention many of his horrible acts that he did later on during that period of the Reformation. I mean, Christians were murdering Christians.
Pretty gruesome.
He encouraged other Christians to sin as much as possible so more grace could be given, in spite of the words of Paul in Romans saying, so do not sin because grace abounds, right? He says, you know, so should we sin then because grace abounds? He goes, heavens, no, don't sin, you know?
Yeah. So he was a Gnostic, really. Spiritual, but not religious, right? Free my soul by screwing up this body because it's evil anyway, and who cares because I'm saved anyway.
Well, and you had a good point in that Peterson video, at least the part one. I will get to the part two, but in that with that is you don't really like overly academic religious treaties, right? Or studies or whatever. And I'm kind of the same way. Like it has to be simple. Like a simple person has to be able to get it. The Bible's written in simple analogies, simple metaphors, right? It's not overly complex. And from a philosophical point of view, I always come back to first principles, man. I feel like when people make things overly academic, they're trying to obscure the first principles of the subject, right? Yeah. They're trying to say it's something else that it's really this over here, even though any idiot can see, no, it's a duck, right? As an example, you know, a duck is a duck.
I mean,
right?
there's nothing wrong per se with studying the higher complex theology, like with this Deification of Man book. The problem is that a lot of people try to turn Orthodoxy into this pseudo-Gnostic religion whereby it's all about accumulating more knowledge of how things work, whereas they're not paying as much attention to becoming virtuous. So there's no dialectical tension between theology and practice when it's done ideally. But the knowledge can mislead people into putting the emphasis on the wrong thing. Obviously, our saints who wrote this high theology were monks. Universally, they were monks. Now, John Calvin did have a quote that I really like. So I'll give him credit for this. He said, nearly all men are infected with the disease of desiring to acquire useless knowledge. Now, theology is not useless knowledge, but if it's not helping you become a better Christian, then you're turning it into useless knowledge. You're turning it into an academic exercise instead of the practice of the virtues and the cultivation of love that all of it is supposed to be pointing at. You know what I mean? So St. Isaac the Syrian, one last quote on this topic.
Go for it.
St. Isaac the Syrian said, the purpose of knowledge is to help you attain faith. Once you have attained faith, there's no use for further knowledge. So I mostly agree with that.
Yeah, what I would say is that you don't really believe or have faith in something you don't act out. And you can have all the knowledge in the world, which is completely Gnostic, but if you don't live it, it means nothing.
Right. And every saint would have said the same thing. Everyone writing these theological treatises said exactly that.
Right. And I just, we live in this world, and don't get me wrong, it is the human condition. It's probably been all throughout history, right? But today we live in this world where people say things, they don't mean it. You know, they don't mean it, but you take it for their word and their face value. Yet there's no reason for you to trust them. And in fact, their actions often expose that they are the exact different thing. And I see, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about some of this occult stuff, Gnosticism, whatever else. I see the world as being highly Gnostic in that as long as you espouse, say, the new religion of SJW, left wokeism, right, you are, avowed of all sins. You are a perfect being. It doesn't matter how you actually act or live, as long as you speak the right words and say the right thing.
Yeah. I want to address a comment here. Someone says, how do you appropriately edify the mind? How do you learn to, I can't see what's this word supposed to be here, properly negotiate the affairs of the world? So all the saints would have said that you have to have the knowledge to exist in the world. There's nothing wrong with accumulating knowledge. Okay, if you're not a monk, you have to worry about paying bills and you have a family, how to feed the kid and take care of the wife. You got to do all that stuff. So you appropriately edify the mind, frankly, by submitting it to Christ and through prayer and through the sacraments and through, learning how to cultivate the virtues. Now, there's some theology you do have to know. Obviously, if you're an Orthodox Christian, there are certain dogmas you have to agree with. And the more you study them, the more sense they make. But it's not, I don't think it requires volumes and volumes to understand the basics. Some things are more complicated than that. And they do help to explain the basics. But the thing I try to warn people about is just not to put the knowledge at the expense of the practice, because that's where you start getting into trouble. Like, okay, I'm still going to fornicate, but maybe 5 more theology books from now, I'll know what I need to do to stop doing it. That's not how it works. You're not going to find the secret formula in one of these theology books to stop.
You know what I did? When I came to my wit's end with myself and my evil, I laid down on the floor. I cried like a baby, and I said, "God help me! God help me! God help me!" Amen. And I did that for I don't know how long, until God renewed my spirit, and I immediately became celibate, no fap, all that stuff.
That's beautiful.
And no, I mean, I was a guy. I didn't go more than a couple of weeks without being with a new girl. I mean, I would be faithful sometimes to whomever I was with, but I'm just saying, if I wasn't with them, this wasn't always my life, but this period of my life, this couple of years, if I wasn't with somebody, or I wasn't in a committed relationship with somebody, or I hadn't been with somebody, it'd be like 2 weeks, 6 weeks at most, 6 weeks at most. There'd be another girl, there'd be someone else I was sleeping with, and it's completely like destructive. It completely destroys your soul. It's completely meaningless. The minute the pleasure is over, you feel so empty. And it wasn't even shame that I felt at the time. It was just like, what is the meaning of this? What am I doing? I'm just following this urge for pleasure. And so, like I said, my point, I just came down. I was coming to this point for a while, but just got sick of everything. And I just said, God, forgive me and whatever. And all of a sudden, and I'd been praying for a while about, God, kick me in the butt, help me get myself, open my eyes, because I know I'm not doing the right thing right now. And he did. So I'll tell you what, if you pray that prayer, folks, if you're doing something wrong that you shouldn't be doing, keep saying, God, help me, God, help me, God, help me. Eventually he will. But I will tell you this too. It is incumbent upon you to take that step yourself as well. And sometimes God's way of helping you is bring you down to as low as you possibly could be. And that's where I was at in my life.
Repentance is the way to healing, man. Every saint will tell you that. I mean, your mentality towards this stuff is very Orthodox. So I'm surprised you said that reading the early church fathers brought you back to Christianity. You understand the repentance, and I don't know. I think you're on the path, man. I think the church has got you a little bit.
Oh no, I mean, like I said, I've been into the early fathers for a long time. I do highly respect the Orthodox Church. I don't know about all the things. A big thing for me with the Orthodox Church is they're super based, right? Like I don't know any other church that isn't as based as the Orthodox Church, but there are some around here. They're a little bit far for me.
You'll get priests.
I have this aversion to churches, though. Like my dad stopped running his own, church, and he started going to this church, which is a Methodist church, that my sister's been going to, and the pastor there and all them, they're good people, but they have so many issues and so many problems. And my wife goes there, but I can't get into it. Like, they make people wear masks during singing and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it, man. I'm like, no. I can't do it. You should be living for God and not being worried about suffering the consequences. Imagine what the early church went through with the persecutions, and they were up and down, folks. Like, they weren't always being persecuted. There were years of peace, but some years were persecutions. And these people willfully went to their deaths. And if they did not, the Romans wrote about this. Those that would not hold to Christ being their Lord and Savior until death, they said that those aren't real Christians. They would say, oh, only the real Christians would do this, and they will willingly go to their death. And that is what Christianity in the end is about. You giving up all materialism to follow God. And that includes materially your life.
100% agree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being thrown to the lions is one thing, but they weren't afraid of the sniffles. Obviously, it's a despicable joke. People in the Orthodox Church, we come in, we venerate the icons of the saints, right? What we're saying is they have eternal life. They've achieved theosis or deification. They're one with God, not ontologically, but by grace they've become one with God. They have eternal life, but I'm going to cover my face and be terrified of death. So really what they're saying is they don't actually believe in eternal life. Now, I do have to run in a second, but I'll leave you with one point on this that I really like and talk about a lot. There's a fantastic Orthodox movie called The Island, or Ostrov, which, if you guys haven't seen it, totally recommend. And there's a scene in this movie. It takes place in a monastery where one of the monks, who's what's called a fool for Christ, like a guy who's just like seems dumb and goofy, but there's a holy purpose behind his actions. He starts throwing another monk's stuff into a fire. He starts burning his shoes, burning his blanket. The room is filled with smoke, and he's like, oh, there's so many demons in here. We got to get them out. The smoke will drive the demons out. He's just like burning all this other monk's stuff, right? And there's a purpose for it. And so after this scene, the monk whose stuff had been burned pulls the guy who burned all of his stuff aside. Obviously, he's angry. He burned all of his stuff. And he says to the monk who burned it, he's got tears in his eyes. He's repenting. He's confessing. He said, there was a moment there when everything was on fire, when I was afraid for my life. And I realized in that moment how little I actually believe, how little faith I actually have. And that's always been forefront in my mind when I'm seeing all these people terrified of a virus that we know it is more survivable than the vast majority of diseases, right? The death rate in 2020, the number of people who died in 2020 is actually lower than the number that died in 2019 and 2018.
Yeah, I've talked about this many times over on online.
It's added zero deaths to the death count. And they're still so terrified. Even if this were a real virus, you'd have to grapple with this. But the fact that they're this scared of the flu, essentially, is really quite horrifying. That said, I do have to run. I have an appointment with my priest in half an hour. But thank you guys. I've enjoyed it. I'm happy to come back on and chat with you guys more later.
Yeah, man. I'll email you. We'll get you back on, because I'd love to pick your mind for a couple hours if we can. So
I'd say longer if I didn't have this appointment.
No worries, dude. No worries.
I
got an appointment tomorrow, so I get it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right, God bless. See you later.
You too. All right, guys. Well, that was Brother Augustine. Once again, if you are in the chat, if you are watching, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I only say it because people forget. They tend to forget. I do it. I watch people, and when they say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I do like this. I should like it. So,
and also, Chad, if you guys find yourself getting bored, you should try Raid Shadow Legends. It's got 500 characters that are all easily customizable. I like to play the barbarians. I have a lot of fun grinding and level up my character. So yeah, give yourself a try with Raid Shadow Legends.
Also, search gold if you search gold today, and while you're at it, get some Bull and Branch sheets, right? So we will have Brother Augustine back for longer. We had to kind of work with his schedule. He ended up working with ours. We might have streamed an hour early. It's whatever. But after the conversation, he should be back. And we appreciate y'all being here and watching. You want to do some memes, Tank?
Let's do some memes.
Give me a second, brother. I'll get them up here. Anyway, actually, you can go ahead. I still have it up.
Okay.
Well, you didn't pull them up?
Oh, my bad. I forgot to hit the button. I was reading Kisses. I was trying to come up with a Manscaped ad, but I can't. So never mind.
This is why Friday, the whole stream, everyone wants me to replace you, Tank. What the hell?
But that's fine. For all have sinned.
Tank's not going anywhere, guys. Tank's not going anywhere. It's just part of the show.
You can get rid of me and then get someone else, and I'll just come and shit post in the chat.
I mean, I would feel like if I got rid of you, that would be like Crowder and not gay Jared. And even though Quarter Black might be better, he might be.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to do you dirty like Crowder did to not gay Jared.
Did he do him dirty? I never heard that story.
I don't know if he did or didn't. I've heard
in
the weeds that maybe he did. Dude, who knows? It's internet drama. I don't really care. So anyways, we have Immanuel Kant, who is a great philosopher. Says, if truth shall kill them, let them die. I too am all about killing them with the truth. All right. No, that's our argument. I simply lack a belief that Jesus Christ is not our son, is not the Son of God.
Well, there you go.
I mean, it seems pretty simple.
I'm gonna put this Orthodox movie in the chat too. That's that movie he was talking about. Chat.
Yeah, I found it, linked it.
Okay.
Guys, we don't have a ton of memes today because I was trying to have more conversation with Michael, because he's a very intelligent man and knows a lot, and so I thought we could converse for a while, but unfortunately, time limits, right? It says when you invite Jesus into your heart, but he sees what's inside there. That's what happened with me, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It says Google. Powerful. Google leaves homepage empty in honor of Jesus' empty tomb.
Good job, Google.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys didn't know, this was Easter this past Sunday. I unfortunately did not make it to services because I was not feeling well that morning. But hey,
please get out.
Look who did make it.
Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out.
Based.
Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out. Out.
All right, that goes on forever. So, in any case, from what I understand, this man was a Polish immigrant, and I think he might have been an Orthodox Christian. I did not see. I'm not exactly sure where this occurred, but this was kind of going around, and it is quite insane. They have no warrant, and they wouldn't leave. And then, of course, this is basically what's going on. I don't care who your daddy is. This is an illegal gathering. And old Joe Biden gave an Easter speech where the devout Catholic did not mention Jesus Christ at all in his Easter message to America on Sunday, but he did mention the coof 7 times.
Well, there you go. We see who's really running the country.
Yeah, our Lord and Savior Anthony Fauci. And then, of course, we have China is detaining Christians for secret facilities, forcing them to renounce their faith or be tortured. In case you guys didn't know, Christianity is the fastest growing religion in the world, from my understanding, and it is mostly growing in China and India, where they are often persecuted. I don't know, Tank, what is your experience in China and Christians? There shouldn't be a lot of them.
I didn't see. I'll tell you this: I saw more Muslims in China than I saw Christians. I've met one Christian Chinese man in my entire life. And it was a dude that came to my college, and I was like, "Oh, what kind of Christian are you?" He just said Protestant. He didn't even know the difference. Which, I mean, I guess makes sense. I'm sure. Well, there is an Oriental Orthodox Church. They're not in communion with the Eastern Orthodox Church, to my understanding, but you don't hear about it very often.
Yeah, well, that's like the Irish Orthodox Church I told you about, and you're like, what? You're like,
yeah.
what? There's an Irish Orthodox Church? There is. There's one near my area, like 45 minutes away. I have to go into Virginia, but yeah. In Greece, priests will be allowed to enter churches with a certificate of vaccination.
This cannot be real. Are you serious?
I tried to find it on Russian Faith and could not, but
Okay.
I don't think this is a fake. I'm pretty sure I took this directly off Instagram, someone reposting it. But you know what Joe Biden had to say about that? Merry Christmas. And speaking of our Lord and Savior, it says Fauci just told us that they found a variant that eludes the test. He wants you to know that you may be sick with an illness that has no symptoms and cannot be verified with a test to confirm you have it, which is why you still need to wear a mask. Stop and think about this. Yes. So there's no symptoms. It evades the test, but wear your mask, folks. You still have it. Every death is a COVID death. Changed my mind. It's going to be the shortest meme cast news ever. I'm telling you what.
Oh, that's fine. We can still bullshit.
I know we will. We always can. So from this whack job, vaccine passports are a good idea, among other things. It will single out the still large contingent of people who refuse vaccines. Okay. Whatever. Anyways, who will be foreclosed from doing a lot of things their peers can do. That should help break the resistance down. Why do you need to break the resistance down? Why do you need to vaccinate people for something that basically only kills fat people? I mean, seriously.
Well, it's... I'm really, every day, Fauci said, like this shit he said the other day about, I forget whose interview it was, but they were asking, Texas has, basically the interviewer said, Texas has told your mask mandate to go fuck itself. So, how do you explain why they're still dropping cases? He was just like, I don't know, but you still should wear a mask, kind of shit. How long can they keep this charade up? Like, eventually you got to be like,
the dude's been a fool from the beginning. Go back and watch stuff on him with AIDS and whatever else. I don't know how he got in the position he got into. He just kissed the right butts. He was likable enough. I have no idea. So, of course, it's the federal government. So, of course, they would put someone in incompetent. In any case, from the Metro, all children might need a vaccine to keep schools open if cases surge. Insanity. Children do not die from this thing. And giving them vaccines that we don't know what the long-term repercussions are, probably not a good idea. AstraZeneca is taking theirs off the market, or nations are taking it off the market for them. Should we just vaccinate children, Tank? Should we just, for the hell of it?
Nah.
Says every child in the UK could need a COVID vaccine to keep schools open if cases surge again, and government advisor said.
Every child in the UK needs an AR-15 in case border crisis.
That I support, and I believe Kizza would support that as well. Kizza, if you're still in the chat, I can't have the chat up and do both these guys. But yes, Kizza, give me a thumbs up in the chat, brother. Okay, so this is how I feel when I see people like this. I mean, this isn't so much how I feel. This is what I feel their thought process is.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. I craved the strength and certainty of steel. I aspired to the purity of the blessed machine. Your kind cling to your flesh, as if it will not decay and fail you. One day the crude biomass that you call the temple will wither, and you will beg my kind to save you.
Ooh. Coming in hot with the transhumans.
Woo!
Tank
Yeah.
loves transhumans, by the way.
Yo, that's my favorite. I'm watching Westworld right now, so I'm really getting my fill.
Oh, dude, it's going to go downhill real quick, by the way. The first season's awesome. Second, I haven't seen the third because the second season goes downhill pretty quick, and the third is SJW trash, from what I understand.
Oh God, what?
So, but enjoy that first season, brother. Enjoy that first season.
we just finished. We just started the second episode of the second season.
Wow.
First season was great. Yeah, I was all about it.
Yeah, it was
I
awesome.
liked. It was the same with Altered Carbon. I really loved the first season of Altered Carbon.
Altered Carbon was great. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I started watching the second season. I really didn't like it that much.
Dude that plays the Falcon didn't have the charisma of the other guy. That's all it was.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I don't think the story was written as well either, but definitely did not have the charisma of whoever that Scandinavian actor is that they got.
Skarsgård.
Yeah.
He was in Godzilla versus. Oh, by the way, I went to the movies, guys. Check this out.
Wow.
I went to the movies twice, actually. I've been to the movies twice, and we saw Godzilla versus Kong last week, and he was in it. Which, by the way, it was a lot better of a movie than I thought. I mean, I was expecting to go in and be like, just something to eat popcorn and watch, but it's actually pretty good.
Well, I'll take it that the movie sucks because we know you have terrible taste in movies. So, anyways, no, I have no idea if Tank has terrible taste in movies or not. But
I mean, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're really going to get down to it,
I would enjoy Godzilla versus King Kong. I think the whole time I'd be like, "This is retarded." This is
I
retarded.
I would not enjoy it on a normal screen. The big screen made it a spectacle.
Okay. Good enough.
And it is, you are not going to get any life lessons out of this movie. Let's be real. Okay. It's an action-packed movie where two monsters fight each other and you end up rooting for one. That's the whole movie.
Well, Tank, in case you didn't know, outside of Godzilla, the CDC just said that study finds nearly 80% of people hospitalized for COVID-19 were overweight or obese.
And yet, at no point in time did the CDC ever say, hey, make sure you get outside and exercise. No, they closed the gyms.
Get your zinc, your vitamin D,
Yeah.
your vitamin C, right? Get your vitamin E, your vitamin A's. Get all that stuff. Go exercise. Yeah, I know. All the health guys I watch, that's all they've been talking about for the last year. They're like, what is going on? They this is part of the death cult, guys. They want people to die. I hate to say something so bluntly like that, but it's true. They want to depopulate the earth. They write about it. I mean, in any case, got the vaccine, got the health passport, healthy. Didn't get the vaccine and eligible for the health passport, unhealthy.
Well, yeah,
Yeah. How'd you guys get so big so quickly? And then he points. If you go to the gym, you support fat shaming. Next week. And all you lazy, whatever out there, get off your butt, go work out. It's good for you. It makes you a better person. It gives you some self-discipline. Go do that. Here we have what we are breathing through our mouths and noses actually hazardous waste. Scientists find evidence of toxic chemicals in some face masks. Imagine that. It's almost like something I made a video about, 6 months ago. Maybe it wasn't that long ago. Over on All-1 is now true. It's crazy how that works. How I can predict the future.
Yeah, I mean, still no one has given me a good reason why the box says that it does not prevent against coronavirus.
Right.
I've been like, so,
liability. That's why.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got to be, right? It's got to be
American liability. Absolutely. That's why.
Well, because in the beginning, I understood the concept of the mask when everyone thought it was droplet transmission, but we've known for 8 months it's aerosol transmission. So at that point, you're just having a moist piece of cloth on your face that traps germs. So
look, dude, we knew before, and dudes be outside wearing masks, which is insane because we know that there are no case transmissions, or supposedly we know there are no case transmissions between folks outside. That was known last April or some crap. Like, we know that upon oxygen exposure, it dies nearly immediately. We know that UV light kills it nearly immediately. If you go and look at the sanitation procedures that people are doing, they're using UV lights, folks. You know what that is? That's sunlight. It'll do the same thing. And you're all a bunch of tards.
What gets me is the people in the mask and then the face shield. I've seen that a few times, like in the car by themselves. Like, bro, what are you doing?
Well, it's two things. It's living in fear, or it's just virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Or it's both at the same time. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty much it. And so here we have, I don't know why my baby has breathing problems. Starter kit. This is ridiculous. And you all should be beaten for child abuse or something. I mean, come to your senses, folks. You're doing, your child is developing. There is, as far as I know, not a single infant that has not only concocted the coronavirus, but has died from it. Not a single one that I'm aware of. Or pregnant mothers or any of that stuff. You know, people talk about this. I know this because my wife, but also I have looked up the data and the studies. There's no real risk. At worst, the only thing it's done to a few pregnant mothers is have them be a few weeks premature, which they might have been anyways. We don't know if they wouldn't have been anyways.
Yeah.
So, but putting a mask on your baby, on your newborn, you're an idiot. And I'm not, well, I shouldn't say I'm not a violent person. I try not to be a violent person. I would rather not be a violent person, but that would be something that would make me come to a little bit of violence, maybe, potentially. Hopefully not, but not happy about that one. Anyways, can you still recognize the difference? Normal, normalized, normal, normalized, and normal versus normalized. I'm glad I'm not hearing the word new normal much anymore. But it also saddens me because the left half of that says normal, right? And I'm pretty sure we're done and over with that, right? It's gone. The new normal is normalized. Pretty sure. I don't know.
Yeah, that's rough.
Sad. Very sad for the whole nation. So not sad though, even though I don't know about this dude, but it says Texas Governor Abbott bans vaccine passports. So good move on him. So he joins Florida in that. And then we have government calls the shutdowns, government calls the poor economy, government calls the lock-ins, and government must be eradicated. And by the way, if these say COVID vaccine or sorry, COVID-19 information center or vaccine underneath that or any of that, it's because I took these directly from Instagram and I did it on purpose. I didn't cut those out because I think it's funny that they do this for like every single little meme. Like, it's a freaking meme, dude. You don't need to be putting disclaimers on a meme. Disclaimer, meme is not true.
Or fact-checking memes.
Nuh-uh. The government is good at one thing. It knows how to break your legs and then hand you a crutch and say, see, if it weren't for the government, you wouldn't be able to walk. And weeks running now with the Homer Bart meme. Every time there's a new law passed for our safety, this is the worst encroachment on our liberty ever. The government. This is the worst encroachment on your liberty so far.
This is one of my favorite meme formats.
And of course, there is Grand Theft World.
Hey!
That's actually a YouTube channel that's rather good.
Well,
I like show. Who does that channel? I can't remember who does that show. But there's a show, Grand Theft World. One of Jay Dyer's buddies. So
okay,
cool. Yeah.
This meme is anti-Semitic.
Okay. Is that because it has squirrels there?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
And then we have status.
Governments need to keep the peace through history.
Governments throughout history.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the heathens up top here. The yeah, you gonna work for me? The Aztec worship over here, the sacrifice. Remember, all the woke skull told you those were good, peaceful people.
Right.
living amongst themselves, not murdering each other and sacrificing themselves to their sun god. Who, by the way, they thought their god Quetzalcoatl came back when Cortez showed up on the beach. They thought that was Quetzalcoatl.
Well, I'm going to Belize in June, so I'll go visit some of the ruins.
Cool.
That was Maya, right? Was that Maya that we're talking about?
Mayas and the Incas
And the Aztecs, right?
and the Aztecs all did it.
Yeah, I only get to see Mayan ruins. I won't get to see any of the other ones, but we'll see.
Well, Mayans is further south, right?
Well, Belize is right underneath Mexico, and there's Mayan ruins there and in Guatemala. So I don't know how far north it goes. Was there anything north of that?
I don't know, man, but I know that there's those 3 different civilizations. I don't know enough about them, but I know that they're in different spots of that, like North American, Central American area that leads to South America. I didn't know if there was any structures down in South America or not. So here it says, your view that a centralized, coercive, and mandated solution to a problem is necessary means only one thing: that you think your inability to imagine other solutions is a sufficient reason to subject everyone else to your will.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, of course. Duh. So here we have Marxists, mountain lions, and toddlers in the intersection. So we're all intersectionalists here, folks. So Marxists want to kill you, and so do mountain lions. But toddlers do not. A lot of rambling monologues, toddlers and Marxists, absolutely. Mountain lions, not so much. Resist taking a bath, both toddlers and mountain lions do. But all 3 are impossible to reason with.
Yeah, well, that one guy choked that mountain lion out, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, well, speaking of reason, let's get ready to mumble! All right.
Hell yeah.
And right after he said that, he turned around and he was like, oh my Lord, it's a lot of stairs to fall down. And guys, I just wished that you would laugh at my memes the way Kamala Harris laughs at questions she can't answer, or anything in general that makes her uncomfortable. God, she became ultra Black Hillary. Before she was just Black Hillary, then she's ultra Black Hillary.
She's the female Obama, but
well, no, that's Michelle.
Oh my God, female? Question mark.
Trans women are women too, Tank. Trans women are women too.
That's fine. Aren't we all women?
No. You go right ahead and believe that, brother. You do your thing. Here we have Biden set to reveal his package in front of school children.
Well, that happens.
Yeah. In that package would be some great stimulus package or infrastructure package, which is supposed to be greater than whatever happened after World War II. And AOC, it's not enough. $2 trillion is not enough. We have to do $10 trillion.
20 trillion.
50
trillion.
50,000 trillion. That's what I say. The reason Biden is popular is no secret. He does popular things on important issues. And that's true. Like, he's building the wall right now. Amazing. So anyone who isn't aware, right, Biden is now back to building Trump's wall. Somehow, I'm sure Raggedy Ann will come and tell the press that this has nothing to do with Trump policies and Trump did it the wrong way. And they're doing it morally right. Since Nancy Pelosi said walls are immoral. I actually heard that a bit last night. I was on Jeremy and Delaney's stream. I wasn't on there. I was in their chat. I did call in a few times real quickly. But yeah, some people were talking about, the wall's basically useless. We need other things. And it's like, okay, but a wall still needs to be there, right? Like, I've always been really agnostic on the wall, basically because it's like, that's like the first measure. I get they build tunnels under. I get they can fly over. I get there are 1,000,001 things they can do to, circumvent this wall. But wouldn't a wall at least be like, hey, we're not going to make it easy on you, right? Something.
Mm-hmm.
A step in the right direction. So speaking of the Bidens, we have Hunter Biden said he smoked Parmesan cheese thinking it was crack. And he did say this. Joe Biden said that Hunter is the smartest person he knows. I'll just leave that one right there. My thing is this, if you're a crackhead and you're fiending for crack, you're probably going to smoke Parmesan, right?
Yeah.
You know? So this is the new MLB, Major League Baseball logo. If you hadn't heard, the MLB is no longer having its All-Star game in Georgia because of, reasons, right? Because of laws, voter ID laws. So they're moving to Colorado where there are stricter voter laws. Yeah, it's a virtue signal gone bad.
Maybe someone can answer this and save me the trouble, but if I was to Google if the MLB works with China, what do you think I would get?
No.
Let's see how
do they
much
like it in China? Do they like the MLB in China? I mean, basketball and football I could kind of see, but baseball's a slow game, man.
I know there are MLB associated teams in Japan, and I think there are some in China.
Japan's different. They like baseball,
but
smaller fields.
I think that the MLB has subsidiaries in Japan, and I think Japan has the same subsidiaries in China. So I think it's a couple degrees of separation.
Okay,
here you go. If the MLB commissioner is so concerned about rights, why partner with China? So something's going on.
Well, you know what? I did get that take from some people I watched that they were in China still, or partnering with them. But yeah, dude, stupid. It's all stupid. In light of the MLB's stance on or to undermine election integrity laws, I've instructed my staff to begin drafting legislation to remove Major League Baseball's federal antitrust exemption. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'm all about that antitrust exemption, though. Let some other people be really rich. And then we have old Ahmaud Arbery, who turns out was actually a jogger. He wasn't just jogging, but jogging was his MO. New evidence was introduced in the Ahmaud Arbery case that shows that he had a history of pretending he was jogging while breaking into places and stealing from stores. He was literally known as the jogger to some locals.
This is how you know we live in a simulation and they're fucking with us.
Yeah, because when we start calling people joggers who are criminals and whatnot, exactly. I get it. I think God just has a really great sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to.
Yeah. I mean, he's letting things go, though. He's letting things be. So if there's a simulation, it's that other guy that's running it. Which would make sense.
For sure.
And speaking of which, Tank and I were talking about this before the show. Innocent small business owners waiting for the Derek Chauvin verdict.
Oh, bro, it's coming. It's coming.
Not guilty.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna get completely off. He's definitely not gonna get murdered too. I feel like
he's not gonna get murdered in any way, shape, or form. It's impossible. There's no way with the testimony that the witnesses gave, unless the jury is absolutely crooked. I just don't see it.
What's the difference between murder two and manslaughter?
I don't know. It depends on the state, but for them, I think it's unintentional, like it wasn't premeditated. Manslaughter is usually a charge that is given for people who cause a murder that's unintentional. So there's vehicular homicide, of course, but manslaughter is often brought to that. Like you lost control of your vehicle somehow or another, like you weren't drunk, blah, 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 and you killed somebody, you might be charged with manslaughter.
So I think, if I remember correctly, murder one is premeditation and intent. Murder two is intent, but not premeditation. Like you just did it in the moment. And murder three, or oftentimes called manslaughter, is no intent and no premeditation. But if murder two is intent, then how can he be charged for murder two and murder three if he either intended or he didn't? That seems like something that should be worked out before you go to court, I would think. I mean, I don't know anything about the law.
I'm just going to say it though. I mean, George Floyd died of fentanyl. There's no doubt in my mind. I've
I
experienced
believe that too.
many an addict overdosing. You know, one of the main things I did when I worked security at the university hospital down the road here was I held down people that were basically ODing on heroin and fentanyl because they're in the state fighting with the people trying to save their lives. And so a lot of that is, or holding, you know, doing an arm bar to hold someone's arm straight so they can get an IV in, just stupid, silly stuff. But yeah, they don't know what's going on. And George Floyd definitely was not with it that day from all of the evidence. And all this is just the media. It's all just the media trying to prop up this narrative that doesn't quite exist. They don't want to acknowledge the reality. Realities like this, actually, killers in the media won't talk about. Early April edition. Those kind of realities. Realities like this. Let's see. We've got the Facebook account of a non-white killer, and it's gone.
And it's gone. I mean, yeah.
Have you heard any follow-up on last week's Capitol building attack?
Not a thing.
I don't watch a lot of mainstream news, but you know, all the stuff that I do watch tends to get it from mainstream news, and I do get some from mainstream news myself. I've yet to see an article about the attack because it turns out the guy was Muslim.
Yeah, and Nation of Islam specifically.
Nation of Islam, a Farrakhan alum.
Yeah. And someone had shown, I think it was in DC, there was like a Nation of Islam rally or something where they were doing a bunch of anti-vaccine stuff. They're like, don't take this motherfucking vaccine, you know, Nation of Islam guys. So it's been postulated, I don't know if they followed up on this, but it's been postulated that this was like an anti-vaccine thing because he was Nation of Islam. I don't know, but it'll be funny if that turns out to be true.
What I do know, I did have a meme sort of for this. It wasn't really a meme. I was going to put it together. When I first read anything about this last week, the article stated, and this was an NBC, that this is the first Capitol Police officer to die since the insurrection on January 6th. And they talked about the officers that killed themselves later on, which we have no reason to believe that was associated with the insurrection. And the other guy that died, it said that he died because of injuries sustained there, yet there is no evidence whatsoever. NBC, a major news outlet, is still telling that lie, which has pretty much been debunked. The only person that died that day was Ashley Babbitt, and she was shot by a federal officer who we have no idea who his name is. We have no idea why he decided to shoot somebody through a window who was most likely not a threat in any way, shape, or form. And recently, we've had all this stuff with the DOJ trying to just destroy these folks that walk through the Capitol, and yet the court systems are like, you guys got to back off a little bit because what you're doing is insane, which is crazy because the judges don't usually push back on the DOJ like that. Like they're basically saying like, you guys are detaining folks for no reason and trying to throw charges that are just going to get thrown out. Absolute insanity. In any case, guys, so last few memes, and I wanted Brother Augustine, or that is Michael, on this one just because I know he has some choice thoughts about Jordan Peterson, but there was this just the other day. So contributions to the Atlantic, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, are moving on to comics. Now, Ta-Nehisi Coates has written comics before, so whatever, but he tags Jordan Peterson. And this is what I was talking about earlier. The Red Skull, 10 Rules for Life, Chaos and Order. That is literally 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson.
How do you get so butt mad about a dude who wrote a book about cleaning your room?
Dude, I've read both his books. I have Maps of Meaning. It's not an easy read. It's an academic book. In fact, I have another copy right over here that's sealed because I was trying to take it to get him to sign because I went to one of Peterson's lectures and met the guy. I have a picture with him, shook his hand. Had with another, 50 people or whatever, sat and talked to him privately for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Seemed like a nice guy. I'm not saying he has everything right, But man, he's a step in the right direction for sure for most people. And he's brought a lot of people back into the faith unintentionally.
Yeah.
You know? So Peterson's response, it's actually like his second response, but is, do I really live in a universe where Ta-Nehisi Coates has written a Captain America comic featuring a parody of my ideas as part of the philosophy of an arch-villain, Red Skull? The arch-villain, which is antithetical to Captain America and Jordan Peterson's ideas. So, yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of stuff. I could go through the comic. I actually kind of want to talk about this on Sunday. By the way, guys, we haven't advertised this, but we are going to start a Sunday stream. That is this Sunday, right, Tank? We did.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll do it this Sunday.
We're going to do a regular Sunday stream at 3 p.m. Eastern. And so we want to make it a call-in show. It might take us a while to make it a call-in show. I think one of the things that we might have to do with that is open up our Discord. You guys get in our Discord and maybe just have you all come in to the StreamYards chat, because Tank can kick you out at any point or mute you if he likes. So, supposedly, I don't know. I don't run things.
Yeah, I'm looking at maybe doing stereo too.
Okay.
Depending how complicated it's going to be.
We don't have to do that this Sunday, brother. But yeah, I'd like to get that going on. So,
well, we can. I mean, it's not that hard to bring people into Streamlabs. Just because you just give them the link and get them in. But depending on how many people want to do it, it might be a pain in the ass.
Well, we bring them in, kind of time them.
Yeah,
3 to 5 minutes, whatever, and one person at a time, and then you kick them out, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So people can be sitting backstage. I don't really care. But guys, we'll try and figure out a system for you all. We talked about it though. We would like to stream more often and grow our channel. I don't know why I said awesome, but we'd also like to stream more awesome. That too. So an excerpt says, but that is only the beginning. Your entire culture is under siege. The principles your country was founded upon lost in the name of tolerance. Your religion, your beliefs, your sense of community, all tossed aside like trash, and you cannot even speak out against it. Excuse me, lest you be called a bigot. And who benefits from all this but the vultures feasting on the carcasses, the bankers who stole your homes out from under you, and the politicians they purchased? Well, let them call you what they will. I know who you truly are. The beginning of a revolution, the first to see the collapse of the old guard and the road to something glorious. The glory of Hydra. This is all I have to say about all of this, right? First off, Jordan Peterson says nothing like this. I have literally watched all of his college lectures, not all of them that are online, but all of them from the other year after he first was discovered. I've read both of his books. I've watched many of his lectures until 12 Rules came out, because it became, or interviews, I should say, because it became a thing where I just couldn't keep up with anymore because so many people were interviewing the guy. Jordan Peterson is not the end all be all, but he's not some evil villain in any way, shape, or form. In fact, what he's doing is good for men. But what Ta-Nehisi Coates has a problem with is this. This is actually the real crux of the argument. And so let me go up here. It says, what has happened to the men of the world is truly one of the great tragedies of our time. Once the American man was a conqueror. Now he is but a caretaker. And a caretaker of what he stands for, some amorphous dream, a dream of nothing. Sorry. My mouse is being weird, so sorry. It says, but what I offer you is more than just some petty dream, more than a life of tending the hearth. No more shall women be summoned to fight your battles. I offer steel for your spines and iron for your gut. I offer you the sword of manhood.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Based.
No, Tank. No.
Based Red Skull.
No, you must embrace the matriarchy. You must embrace gynocentrism. You must embrace globo homo. You
Oh
bigot.
shit, we're getting spicy.
Yeah, bigot. All right. Oh, thanks, Mouse, for being. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So in the end, that last little panel there is basically comes down to this: clean your room. And with that, guys, turn off the news. You were never meant to carry the burden of the entire world. That is for Christ. Hey, Tank, that's it, man. Play that outro.
Oh, I gotta get it ready. Hold on, here we go.
Look at this guy being a great producer. Well, Gia, go away. I looked at the chat. We not only lost like all the 30 viewers we had, not all of them. We got 12 right now. We lost all of our viewers because Brother Augustine left.
That's
well, Michael, you have to come back for us. But thank you for the 15 likes. Whoever downvoted us, you're an ass. I hate you. Whatever. You're free to do as you please. We are, of course, based in not part of this world. So I assume that you are. That's why you dislike. I have no idea. Anyways, man. So anything in the chat that we should address?
Yeah, Boot 2 and Entropy just sent us $10 and just said LOL. He said, I thought you guys were leaving, so I made sure to send it. He has nothing clever to say. Thank you, Boot, for the $10. That's a lot of money for not saying anything. So I don't know if I really know how to react to that. Yeah.
It should be brought up. If no one knows, those of you watching, we do have an Entropy. You can donate to us there. We will probably never monetize on YouTube for very good reasons. So if you
Raid Shadow Legends.
What?
Raid Shadow Legends.
Shadow Legends.
I've been playing the barbarian characters. I've had a lot of fun grinding in my
Birch Gold. You like make sure you hedge your investments into Birch Gold. And Bull and Branch. Bull and Branch sheets. I'm fucking sleepy.
Yeah, the only way we're ever getting monetized is if Raid Shadow Legends sends us a script. And I will absolutely read.
Kizza, are you retarded, brother? I thought you were a tech dude. It's in the description, brother.
I guess I'll put a
literally
fucking link in the chat.
Description. It's the second link. 5-star and an Entropy. Come on. You can also, if you like to make a monthly donation, go over there to that. We don't have any tiers set up or anything, but just saying, if you guys like to support us. Tank has a real job. I do this full time as well as be a house dad, whatever that means. Just because I'm not living the regular life that we were all taught to live in the world today. I'm done with that. Did that for 20 some odd years. I'm done.
Shit.
I'm gonna do my own thing now. Gonna figure out how to make money my own way.
So I guess we're getting into the show here, but I do kind of want to talk about the Chauvin trial that I saw today. It's going to be a shit show, guys. He's getting off. I almost assuredly.
Don't you dare be a chauvinist.
Kizza has asked, I thought the fastest growing religion was Kizzaism. Maybe. I don't know.
That's gay, Kizza. Pretty gay. What? You don't have a religion, man. You can't even write your freaking counter Uri plan down. What are you doing?
Yeah, no, yeah. Like at least get like a Substack or something.
Get a Substack.
Like it's not like a live. Put it on a MySpace. Let's all go back there.
Yeah, back to MySpace.
But yeah, so the Chauvin trial. So if you just look at the news, it seems like it looks like the prosecution's absolutely hammering and going to beat his ass. But if you actually watch the trial, it looks like the defense is absolutely killing it. Now, tomorrow could be tomorrow could be a different day. They might come out with something. But at no point so far that I've noticed has the knee on the neck even been brought up. So this is something that I've been talking about. I think I mentioned when we first talked about this whole thing. you know, I've done some grappling and jiu-jitsu. The back of your neck is tough. And people who've read the autopsy will know that they didn't say anything about interest neck. Anything you need to choke someone with is here and here. It's all in the front, right? So I was always skeptical of the idea that a knee on the back of someone's neck was going to be that big of an issue. The knees on if someone was handcuffed on the ground face down, it is admittedly hard to breathe, and a lot of agencies that I've seen do not like this because there is a risk of positional asphyxiation.
Yeah, I was not from the moment I got out of the correctional academy, was not allowed to put someone in a prone position,
right,
with their hands cupped behind their backs because of positional asphyxiation. But the reason for that was because in Western Maryland, they had a 500-pound inmate get pepper sprayed, hog-tied, and then he died. Obviously, a 500-pound man is going to be a problem when it comes to positional asphyxiation because they're so heavy they can't lift their own chest to try and breathe. For most people, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
but that's why we also, like, if you go lifeguard training or any sort of first aid, you have the recovery position, right? And as for the knee on the neck thing, there is some cervical nerve injury that you can cause by that, and you don't know how that's going to play out. But generally speaking, you can modulate your weight, and so you have to have your hips over your knees. I've talked about this before. I think I talked about the first time Dom was on. So your knees like a hinge joint, right? And the more you hinge it, the less weight you actually have directly on it. So it has to be at a 90 degree, and then your hips have to be directly over your femur.
Yeah.
Before you put full body weight onto someone's neck, and Chauvin was not doing.
Yeah, like the knee on belt. So if anyone ever does jiu-jitsu, if you're in a dominant position, like a top position, they'll tell you to keep as many points of contact off the ground as possible and keep as many point of contacts on the person as possible, because that's how you make it more comfortable. And if anyone knows MMA, you've probably seen knee on belly, which is like where the person in the top position has their knee, like you're kind of driving. Yeah. So when I was learning that position, the guy told me, you know, just like you said, make sure you're getting completely up, getting your hip over your femur. We called it power cocking, because like you would put your knee up and then you like drive your hips forward like you were doing like a, you know, so that was our name. So we would,
you got to do the same thing if you're in a tie clench. So if you nape someone on the back of the neck, or sorry, the back of the head on the occipital lobe, not the neck, guys. That's why I corrected myself. I misspoke. Not the neck. You're going to watch 1,000,001 YouTube videos where someone's going to show a nape, a tie clench on the back of the neck, and they're wrong. You cannot plunge someone's head down on the back of the neck. You just hang your weight there. On the back of their head, though, boom, head goes right down. And so you do that, and as you do that, you pull your hips toward them like you're giving business to your old lady. But you have to do that because that protects you from them escaping you in all that stuff. It's just fighting strategy. Seems awkward, seems weird, becomes natural. Hey, real quick, Boot 2 gave us another $3. Dude, I won't spend it all in one place, but you know, don't break the bank on us either. So it says, who is ready for summer of mostly fiery but peaceful protests coming near your closest city? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of why I was skeptical of the whole knee on the neck, and I guess I'm kind of vindicated because no one's brought it up in the prosecution yet, and I think they kind of know that's bullshit. Like, you know the sensitive part of your neck if you're a human. Like getting punched in the windpipe and getting punched on the back of the neck are going to be two completely different sensations. Tank is never in the top position. Motherfucker, if you don't subscribe to my OnlyFans, you don't know what position I'm in. So fuck you.
I appreciated that, Osis. Don't listen to Tank. He's fiery. He had a long day at work.
But yeah, so back to the original point. The defense looks like a knocking out of the park. They had I think the chief had said something like they don't use that position, the prone position, but then he walked it back. There's been some weird stuff. But basically, guys, I don't know what to tell you, but like Boot said, it's probably going to be a pretty interesting summer.
It's going to be, I think, less worse than last year because too many people got sick of it. The tolerance for BLM went down dramatically, and no matter what, you think about any of this stuff, just know that it won't be the same as it was last year, because there isn't enough fire behind it. People haven't been locked in for months. There's not there's no evil bad guy to fight like Donald Trump. I mean, Joe Biden, don't get me wrong, is terrible. Like far, far, far more incompetent than I could ever imagine. But the media likes him well enough, even though they are complaining about him a little bit now. And we're just not going to have this reason to defeat somebody because there's no election either. You have to understand, most of these people were bussed in. They literally were. The folks that were killed because of the whole Rittenhouse deal, none of them were from the local area.
Right.
They were from out of town. And they're all scumbags, by the way, too. But this is how it works. They bust them in. They say, we're going to have a protest, start organize this, community organizers. You get these people that otherwise would normally be degenerates in prison or whatever else. And don't get me wrong, not everyone who goes to jail is a bad person. They just mess up. But what I'm saying is that there is a pattern of folks who do attend these things, and it's not good. And they, like I said, organize, they bust them, they get money, much like the migrant caravans, and it's all to do the leftist bidding. They're the useful idiots, and they're so dumb they don't even know. They're just, oh, it's a good cause, I'm being righteous. Just like I said earlier, we were talking about with Michael earlier about these people who believe that they are righteous merely by speaking the correct words, and a lot of them think they're righteous by doing evil, which is absolutely insane to me. But and this is our history as human beings. This is what we do.
Rosenbaum was a mostly peaceful pedophile. Want to give Kyle a tank hug.
Is that a hug from behind? I don't understand what your meaning is there, Commander.
I mean, I guess, I mean, with this mustache, how can you...
Hug from the bottom? I don't understand.
A mouth hug.
Osis, I appreciate you being here. You're one of my favorite peoples to chat with over in Jeremy Delaney's chat. So Osis seems to be a very well-read and informed individual. I'll put it that way. So I like his hot takes on Tank. He says exactly. He says exactly. I don't know. It's either from behind or below. That's all I know. He's like,
oh, yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I just like to party. But yeah, so I don't know. It's gonna be rough. I wonder how many more like Kyle Rittenhouse situations we're gonna run into. Because like if this shit comes back again, like last summer we had all these riots. If it comes back again, what's going to happen? Like people's got to start getting sick of this. And especially if you expect it to happen, like if people are watching the news right now and they're like, oh shit, here we go again. Then, where are you going to go? You got to.
Yeah, I think what we'll see some local riots. I think that a lot of places, one of the things that we saw toward the end of summer into the fall was a lot of places that weren't rioting originally were cracking down way harder, like Pennsylvania. They didn't let that go on very long. They were like, no, you're not gonna mess with us. So I think you'll see a different response. Another reason why we'll see a different response from police and local government is, once again, Trump's not in office. So we don't need to make the Republicans the bad guy. Right. Now, 60 Minutes tried to do this the other day with Ron DeSantis. They tried to make him a totally bad guy by basically putting out fake news. I covered this over on All-1. If you guys want to go check that out, numerous people have covered it. But basically, DeSantis has been doing really well for Florida. Can't be a hero. So 60 Minutes did a little hit piece and said he was doing a pay-for-play scheme, which wasn't true. And then they cut the actual full-length interview and all the pertinent information. So, I mean, that's just mainstream media, though. So, that affects the boomers, right? That affects the normies. I would say most people. I would assume most people younger than me are not just stuck in a legacy media, but I do understand that is the hold for the mass Vast majority of the population, the masses,
right? Since we're talking about riots, if anyone in the chat has a recommendation for an inexpensive tactical shotgun, let me know, because I'm looking to buy one. I decided not to build an AR because the only range that I can shoot an AR at around here is like 55 minutes away. But there's a closer range that does pistols and shotguns, so I'm gonna build one, or not build one, but buy one of those instead. Yeah, but talking about DeSantis, I didn't get to see it all, but they showed the 60 minutes clip or whatever, and then they showed the full unedited version, and it's like night and day. Thaddeus Russell had tweeted that, DeSantis needs to hire a food taster, so it's going to be. I mean, they got it out for this dude, I guess, because they think he's going to be Mossberg 930 SPX. Yeah, I'm looking to that. But yeah, they're really trying to make this guy, like, for 4 years we've been hearing how terrible conspiracy theorists were, and then here's all these leftists, or not leftists, but like liberals and stuff, saying that DeSantis is like hiding bodies in the Everglades or something. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything new to anybody here, but you see how retarded these guys are.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't want him to have a chance. So I don't watch The Hill very often, but I caught wind of this whole thing from The Hill. The Hill used to be all right, like 5 years ago. They've just gotten more and more left and more elitist, in my opinion. It was because of Trump, just like everyone else, because of Trump. In fact, today I watched a segment from The Hill, and they were talking about how Trump was and how divisive he was. And I'm like, no, you guys were the ones who were divisive. The media were the divisive ones. Trump would have been a great unifier. If everyone had said, let's make America great, let's build up our economy, let's do all this stuff. But you don't want that. You want the average Joe to suffer because you want your globalism. And you think that average Joe should suffer because potentially his ancestors, probably not, but some ancestor of some white person a long time ago had slaves. Therefore, average Joe needs to suffer. And that, my friends, is just insanity once again. And it's evil. It's absolutely evil. Like, I judge people based on who they are and nothing else, right? I don't care about your parents. Now, I might assume some things about you. I might have some prejudices about you because of your parents or your background, but I'm not going to, judge your character, your entirety of your being based on something from the past or where you come from, per se. I freely admit all the time my not so righteous past. And I'm not perfect today either. Don't get me wrong, but I am leagues above where I was at. So yeah, we have to understand things like this, but I don't know, man, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. Is there anything else that you want to cover here, Tank, before we get out of here?
No, that's probably good.
All right. Well, guys, hey, we did have 209 subs from Friday night stream, which is privated now. You cannot watch it.
All the drunk streams are probably going to be private.
They're going to be private, guys. This is the way it's going to go. And that'll probably be a once a month thing. So it's once a month opportunity of a lifetime, right? But thank you all for watching. In any case, our subs went from 209 down to 207, and now we're back up to 211 today. So that is appreciative because YouTube likes to steal 2 or 3 subs from me all the time. It just is what they do, unfortunately. So I really appreciate that. Appreciate you guys donating, appreciating the upvotes, the 18 likes we have right now that I can see. Thank you all. We will have Michael on again, Brother Augustine. He will be on again. Hopefully we can keep him for 2 or 3 hours, really pick his brain, really have a deep conversation about some stuff. But that's all we could do for tonight, guys. And right now, no guests for next week lined up. So maybe I can see if I can get him back on next week if he's not busy. We'll see.
Okay.
With all that, Tank, you got nothing, right?
I got nothing.
All right, guys. Well, this has been the Ends Justify the Memes. And remember, those ends always justify those memes. Play the outro.